Hello and welcome, everybody. It's Thursday night, so it is time once again for the Tank Show, where we spend time acquiring new knowledge, hopefully bring you all some value through education and entertainment. I want to thank my buddy, pal, and co-host Chattanooga Ed for being here with me. As always, appreciate it. I hope you're doing well, Ed.
Doing my best.
Fantastic. So we've got a couple things to talk about, mostly leaving it open for Q&A today so we can get to all of your questions and comments tonight. But M&Z Aquatics was saying hello and also had a good question here. Said, Central American cichlid stocking ideas for a 46 long. Now, I'm going to hand this one over to Ed because we were actually talking about it right before we started, and he had a really interesting, really great idea for that. So, Ed, go ahead and tell him what you came up with.
Well, okay, I would go with the Convicts because they're smaller, but there are these electric blue Convicts, and they are crazy fire awesome. And, I mean, look at how good looking that is. He's not going to be huge. They're going to be a lot of them, but try to weed them off. But I don't think you're going to have a problem giving a fish that looks like that away. I mean, that is a hot fish, I think.
That is a beautiful fish. Beautiful fish. So tonight, I want to talk a little bit about what makes the perfect tank. By perfect tank, I mean a tank that is successful long-term, that doesn't give you problems and doesn't have you in the chat and in the books going, help, this is going on, help, this is going on. So some things we can do kind of from the get-go and keep in mind to be more successful. Real quick, while everybody is still loading in here, a huge thank you to Patrick Hardy for the $2 super sticker with the on-set director's chair. Thank you so much for that, Patrick. Appreciate the support. Fish Tank Dad repping his membership with the membership chat. Been a member for 2 months. 2 months. Thank you, Fish Tank Dad. Says Rico for president. Absolutely. I'll get behind that one. And Liquid Zoo OnlyFin using his membership chat. Again, thank you for the support as well. Says, heck, y'all, I'll use my freebie for that Rico for president, Ed for vice president. I love it. There you go. And that's about as political as we're going to get tonight. But Fish Tank Dad, Patrick Hardy, Liquid Zoo, thank you all for the support. Very much appreciate it. There's the Rico stand sticker. I believe he will be on tonight following the Chattanooga Ed show. Crafted with Chattanooga Ed. If not, Rico, let me know. I know you haven't been feeling the best. But that being said, looks like John and Lisa just wrapped things up. As always, a huge thank you to KG Tropicals, keepfishkeeping.com for the send over on Thursday nights. We do very much appreciate that. So in terms of setting up the perfect tank, and I definitely want some input from you all in the chat, get your opinions and your thoughts, because that's what we're here for, is to kind of think things through as a group, not just take what Ed and I say, for prophecy and go off of that. But in my opinion, I feel like it comes down to two things. It comes down to time and it comes down to balance. And there are a lot of things that fall under the umbrellas of those two things. Time would cover, not just cycling your tank, which we can talk a little bit about, but also getting to a seasoned tank or seasoned tank time, as you've probably heard that terminology going around the interwebs, around the tube. Cycling, of course, most of y'all know this, but for anybody that's not familiar with it, when you're cycling your aquarium, you're dealing with ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. Basically, you're wanting to build up a bacteria colony that will transfer or change over, process ammonia into nitrite, and then a separate bacteria colony to process nitrite into nitrate, which is what we're then pulling out of our water column, typically through water changes, but plants are a great way to work on that as well. Beyond cycling, because I could rant for 30 minutes about what cycling is and true cycling and how it actually functions in an aquarium day to day. But beyond that, I feel like something more important is season tank time. And that's where I'll turn it over to Ed, and he can talk a little bit about his initial setup process and what he does versus just setting up a tank, testing it for a week or whatever until the numbers work out right and it is quote unquote cycled. So Ed, what do you do when you set up a tank?
I am extremely patient. First thing I do is, lately I've been doing the sand caps over the soil, and I plant my plants. So once I get that set up, then I do the water. I'm going to give it light and ferts. And I want those plants to get in there real deep and grow their roots down deep into the dirt and the sand. And they are going to bring beneficial bacteria into your tank just from wherever they came from. You're going to have some snails come along with the plants. That's just always comes. And I let that go for about a month or two. I don't do anything quick. Now, I do plan on trying to do maybe my saltwater tank finally quick, because I might be maybe get a good deal on some corals when I'm in Aquachella here in 3 weeks. But so that's not going to be a month sitting. But I've never done salt, so I'm allowed to mess up there. But
Absolutely.
freshwater, yeah, I let it go for as long as I can. And when it comes time for those fish, I don't ever have any problems. You know, my ammonia levels, everything. You know, I want crystal clear water when they're going in. And that's what happens, and they stay good. So, but
Absolutely.
I did an experiment, and I did the Lucas Bretts for, I think it's going on 8 months now without air in most of my tanks. And I mean, the tanks all, no fish are dying or anything like that. But when I was trying to clean up the tanks to look pristine for the magazine guy, I couldn't believe how much mulm I had when I was pulling extra plants out and stuff. And I think I'm going to go back to the air, you know, the sponges probably next week, just to, you know, do a little extra polishing and help out a little bit more there.
Absolutely. And I think that topic is actually on point as well, because I think I love the Lucas Bretts method. There's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like for the average hobbyist or the beginner hobbyist, it's probably not ideal, just because it is dependent upon that balance, the natural balance from the plant life in the tank. And oftentimes new hobbyists have issues just with growing plants in and of themselves, let alone getting the plants to the point that they're properly balancing out with the stocking level. But I think that probably what you were seeing is just that lack of a mechanical filtration from your sponge filters not running gave you that extra mulm. And I have nothing against mulm. Some of you all that have been around for a while know that. No, I've kept plenty of bare bottom tanks that had mulm. I'm not an anti-mulm person, but definitely, like you were mentioning, when you're trying to get a pristine look, especially for like a magazine or a newspaper shoot or something like that, the lack of mechanical filtration does factor in, even though you were achieving a natural balance for your cycle and your bio load.
Yeah. But now also, though, behind Lucas's theory, and I don't know if you can call it a theory, because I think it's proven. I do believe what he says, that it helps the egg scatters feel more comfortable dropping eggs.
Yeah.
Because in the wild, there's no bubbles constantly coming. But I mostly have guppies, and I don't think they care what's going on. You know, they pretty much eat and have sex. That's about all they do.
They eat and make babies, and that's about it. And come stare at you at the front of the tank so that they can eat more, so they can make more babies.
Yeah. So, I think for the most part, since I don't have really any egg scatters except for my rice fish, and the rice fish are going to be hooked to a sump, so it's not going to have like air going in. It'll just be a gradual pull of, you know, flow. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that plays on two key things for the quote-unquote perfect aquarium, or setting up a successful aquarium. And that is going to be not just the natural balance of getting plants in there, and by balancing out the bio load of what fish you have in there and how much waste is being produced against how much nitrate those plants can uptake from the water, but also having a mechanical filtration aspect in there. Something just as simple as a sponge filter. You know, I'm a huge fan of sponge filters. I love the kitty cat. I know one of mine recently has decided that I am his new best friend. We've always been friends, but now he's like, I'm going to lay in your lap all the time. And I'm really enjoying that. Sorry, cats, always a wonderful distraction. Love it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I got off on a cat tangent myself. But that being said, when you're setting up an aquarium, I really would encourage you to do a planted tank. Even if you've not tried one before, there are some plants out there that are extremely easy. A lot of times, you know, things like, and you'll have some people, again, that what works for one doesn't work for everybody. You know, some people can't get rid of duckweed and some people can't keep it alive to save their life. But you've got some really simple things. A lot of floating plants are really easy to start with if you're not familiar with plants. You could do guppy grass, your water sprite or water wisteria. Mosses are another good one I find. Lighting is so simple to do nowadays with the advancements of LED lighting that you can go, to your local fish store or Amazon or, Aquarium Co-op or keepfishkeeping.com, and you can find wonderful lighting sets, extremely affordable, that will take care of pretty much all your plant needs. And that's going to help you keep that balance in your tank. And then adding on that mechanical filtration, it can be something as simple as sponge filters. I am a huge fan of sponge filters. Again, local fish store or either one of those websites just mentioned, as I'm sure mods will post links in the chat for, depending upon what style you like. Sponge filters are really cheap. You stick one in there. Not only are you getting that mechanical filtration from it, you of course get that area for beneficial bacteria, which, like we've talked about, is not necessary to have that space in there because you'll get beneficial bacteria on your plants and your substrate and the surface areas of your aquarium. But it also adds that aeration factor, which I personally like. I like having that additional surface agitation going on, not just for oxygen exchange, but also to help avoid the buildup of proteins on the top of the water. If you've ever looked at an aquarium that doesn't really have surface agitation going, you'll notice a lot of times they have a film on the top of them, and that surface agitation can help avoid that. So just that's a personal thing for me. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that as long as there's plenty of oxygen getting into the tank, like via your plants. I just am not a fan of the film on top of the water. I'm going to grab a couple things from the chat here because I am getting behind. Master Aquatics, Eduardo saying hello, Fish Room Fever people. Hello, Eduardo. Appreciate you being here, my friend. Delilah's Critter saying, hey, friends. Hey there, Delilah. No, I'm not going to sing. Sorry. I apologize to everybody who just had to hear that.
Well, I was trying to figure out what the song was that Rico was saying that he wanted to be the president of cheese.
I see that. He did a $5 super chat after those. A couple people mentioned having Rico for president. Rico Stan said, I'll be president of the Cheese Club, but that's about it.
I'll be the president of the Cheese Club. That's about it.
But thank you, Rico Stan, for that super chat, my friend. Appreciate your support as always. And yeah, we can elect you president of the Cheese Club. I think you've got a good taste in fine cheeses for that to work out well.
I would love to have a friend like that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, buddy.
I would love to have a friend that's a president of a cheese club.
Absolutely.
Or a CEO of a cheese factory. Maybe be better.
Hey, there you go.
I need to broaden my friends.
Eduardo says, sorry if you've answered this question before, but will you be coming to Aquachella, Orlando? Ed will be there definitely. I will more than likely be there. Timing is going to be a huge factor with certain things. I'm going to do my best to be there. Ed will definitely be there. I'm trying to get there for sure.
Keep our fingers crossed.
So yeah, fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Paul Sotero says, James, I just got out of a RAS meeting and they were very concerned with new federal legislation that would ban many animals in the pet trade. Can I post the link for people to read? Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I don't do this often, and I really don't do this live, but we're going to do this. Paul is one of those people that every single week he's got valuable knowledge and information, and oftentimes he has a link that he can't share. So, Paul, we're just going to go ahead and make you a moderator because you're 100% every week in here dropping valuable resources and info. So that will give you the opportunity to be able to post links without having to message them on to a moderator that can then post them. So,
and Paul's
cool for that. He is, and Paul's cool, absolutely. K Stu says, have you ever found a large cichlid that doesn't destroy plants? I would love to plant my Frontosa tank, but I know they'll just wreck it. I have gotten away once or twice with specific fish that had a personality that was a little bit softer or kinder. But overall, being able to state, hey, this species doesn't wreck plants hasn't really worked for me. The best experiences I've ever had were not necessarily with any particular fish, but were with the planting method. And that was when I used flower pots, terracotta pots, and I planted my plants in those and kind of got them out of the substrate up off of the floor of the tank. And that did seem to help, mostly because they didn't tend to, though they definitely could, they didn't tend to go into those flower pots to move substrate around like they typically do with the bottom of the aquarium. So that tended to save the plants because they were kind of up out of the way. They weren't in the area that was constantly getting redecorated and moved around. So you could give that a try. I would probably start out with maybe just one plant that way. So you're not going all in and then you're like, hey, James said to try this and I spent $150 on plants and tried it and my fish still killed them all. But you could give that a try. Put a flower pot in there with your substrate. I definitely recommend if you're going to do that you either do a dirted flower pot, or what's really easy is to just use like some root tabs and get some root tabs in there. Make sure you've got some sort of nutrients in that substrate that you're using in the flower pot, since they're not really going to be able to draw up much from the main substrate in the aquarium. I hope that helps.
Cap it with sand so when you put the pot into the water, the dirt just doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do a dirted one, follow through with the actual dirted method of sand capping it and ensuring you're not going to dirt the tank up. I would also go on the bottom of it if you're doing the dirted method, since there's typically a hole in terracotta pots. Go on the bottom and you can either seal that up, you could cover that up with some gravel and then sand, because if you put just sand, it's going to try and just pour through the hole. But get that hole covered up so that the dirt isn't directly in contact with the hole in the bottom of the terracotta pot. That way, if you do move it around, it doesn't seep out that way.
Yeah, I had a video, or one of our live streams not too long ago on the Crafted was setting up one of those, and it's doing incredibly well in my fish tub, and it's the jungle valve, so it's getting real long and flowing across the top. It's pretty cool.
Sarah J. Sieber says, now I'm looking into catching some Savannah darters for my new pond build this year. They are so cute.
Well, we need to make an announcement about Sarah. She asked what her fish mafia name could be. And I knew that she lived in Savannah. So the first thing I did was, I know that shiners and darters both are native to that area. So I typed in Savannah darter and they're there. So I said, that's your new mafia name. So Sarah is now the official Savannah darter.
I love it. That's awesome and well suited. Good job on that one. Paul Sotero saying thank you. No, thank you, Paul. Like I mentioned, I brag on you a lot, and I hope that I don't make anybody else feel bad, and I don't make you feel bad. But I find that you pretty much every week have something valuable to add. So I wanted you to be able to share those things when you come across them. Plus, we have an amazing moderator crew here that does a phenomenal job, and I felt like you should be a part of that awesome crew here that's always taking care of the chat, answering questions, even if we don't, not that we don't get to them, but a lot of times the chat, will answer its own question before we get to it. And we're kind of like, oh yeah, that was a great answer. You don't need me for anything. So
can we go back to the cichlid, the large cichlid thing?
Absolutely.
Now I don't know if it has to be like a cichlid that has like an elongated body, but discus actually are cichlids and they can get pretty big. And, they're like angels and discus are going to lay their eggs on plants so they don't tear the plants out. They're not diggers. So your discus might be an option, and they're incredibly beautiful.
Yes. They're
pretty peaceful. They're pretty cool. But, I mean, maybe you're looking for something that looks more like a bass.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very good point, Ed. Very good. Where was it? There it was. Son of Clack says, how bad does chloramine take a toll on fish? Lost my second pygmy Cory. I tank cycled and I feed every couple days. A couple weeks ago, by mistake, I dosed half my dechlor. You think that killed them? It definitely could. So basically, chlorine and chloramine both have a horrible effect on fish in terms of burning the gills. And if you look up actual pictures of it, you can see that it's rather rough. But basically what it does, in brief, without going into the science behind it, basically causes it to where they can't breathe, because they breathe via their gills, and it burns them to where they don't really work right, and they can't get oxygen, so they pretty much suffocate. And it can happen very quickly. You can chlorine or chloramine burn your fish's gills fairly quickly if you don't have the proper amount of dechlor. I have had once or twice over the thousands of water changes I've done over the years where if I'm doing, 10 tanks at a time or 12 tanks at a time, if I'm doing a rack, maybe something happened and I skipped one. I forgot to dechlor one, or I thought I dechlored one. And very quickly able to tell something was wrong with those fish and something bad was happening. Fortunately, was able to catch it where I, could add some dechlor in there and didn't lose any fish. But you could very easily kill stuff off if you're not dechlorinating fully. You're not fully neutralizing your chlorine and chloramines. And cory cats tend to be, although a very hardy fish, they tend to be sensitive to certain water parameters. And I feel like ammonia and chlorine and chloramine are within those that really affect cory cats, just in my experience. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Very long answer to say, yes, that probably had something to do with it, especially if you have high levels of chloramine and you're not neutralizing it.
I'm amazed by how quick that prime works. It just takes a couple of drops and it wipes it out. And I'm just, for years, I mean, literally decades, I cured my own water by just sitting it for 3 days. And, you can pretty much do it overnight. 24 hours is normally what's recommended, but I would always go 3 days and I would keep several buckets. And it was crazy. Now I've gone to prime and life is so much easier with that and a Python. I think you're muted, James.
I moved away. I was trying to get my prime and then I rolled my chair straight into the floor vent. So I had to fix that. But yeah, prime, anybody that's not familiar with it, T.A.N.K product. Not sponsored, just really, really love the stuff. This bottle here treats a ridiculous amount. This treats 10,000 US gallons or 40,000 liters. And they're usually, we'll high end it and say $30, but I don't think it's even that much for the big bottle. So that's great if you've got a fish room. And it's 1 ml per 10 gallons when you're dosing. So it's a lot more efficient, in my opinion, versus a lot of things. I love API products, but a lot of times it's, 1 ml per gallon or 10 mLs per 10 gallons. And then if you're dosing, 1,000 gallons worth of tanks that you're doing water changes on in a fish room, you're having to dump a lot of that stuff in, and it just kind of gets old quick. And it gets expensive.
Yeah, I didn't. Excuse me. I always was API because it was a lot more affordable than Prime till I realized how little amount of Prime you needed. And now this is empty. I just have it for the cap and for the instructions. Unfortunately, I don't know what I did with my glasses. I had them on. Didn't I just have them on?
I honestly don't know if you did or not. But yeah, I actually go to the Dollar Tree and I get these little glass vials, little vials, and I bring one of those when we go on our trips and I fill it with Prime, and it'll treat 260 gallons worth of water. And it's just this little teeny thing. I screw the lid on, throw it in my bag. I always take a pipette with me. I had to think of the word so that I can dose it out. And so anytime we're out, Ed and I are out in the wild, if you will, at conventions and things, and we come across fish, and I typically will rebag them. I can make up fresh water for them that way, and you're good to go. So let me get back on track. I know we've got some super chats, super stickers to get to, and I appreciate you all. I have not overlooked them. I'm going to do all those in just a second. Scuba Stevo says, I need my name to be official too, LOL, for his mafia name. What was it again? I've forgotten. You'll have to remind me, Scuba Steve, but we will definitely make it official.
We need to set up a website or some type of a page. I was thinking about this yesterday where I can just read everybody's names and keep fresh, because I was trying to think up names like just a few days ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people.
Absolutely. I wonder if we could volunteer Matt to do that. He's done such an amazing job with that website he's got set up. I wouldn't even try to do anything on my website with that. I feel like Matt would probably have it nailed out in no time and do it a lot better than I would. Paul Stero saying, James, you're making my dog blush. I'm sorry, Paul, but you've got such a wonderful dog. Pegasus Arena's in here, says LFS taking my fish to rehome them while I'm cleaning and packing stuff for a future move. My question, when I restart the tanks, I plan on planted, besides dirted, what is the best substrate? So honestly, that is going to get you a non-answer from me, and that's going to be whatever you prefer. If you want to get into technicalities, I suppose technically speaking, things like your fluval stratum and planted specific substrates that already incorporate the nutrients are your best. But I have a lot of tanks that are just, the 40-pound bag of pea gravel for $6 that you get at a Lowe's or a Home Depot, and have done planted with those for quite some time and had a lot of success. Oftentimes you'll want to add some sort of fertilizer. I typically dose Easy Green, the liquid form. Dose that in there, really simple, and the Easy Iron as well. But then you can use root tabs too. Those are kind of my go-tos. And you can use pretty much any substrate you want. The trickiest is going to be sand only, because it can be kind of hard for roots to get into nutrients. Again, it depends. If you're doing rhizome plants, you're not doing stuff that's planted in the substrate, you don't even need substrate. If you're doing floating plants or mosses, also technically don't need substrate. You can do those water column feeders with no substrate. But I would just kind of look at what you want to do. And I know your kids, Rena, really enjoy your tanks. So if you wanted to get crazy with some pink and purple gravel in there, you could do that. I know that the little ones really enjoy your fish tanks. So totally up to you.
Well, I had root tabs on my table before the stream, and I don't know where I put them.
I'm having that issue today. So, completely side note, but just because I know some of the people that regularly watch are like, James is a little off today. They discontinued the energy drinks that I've been drinking for, I guess, about a decade now, which is normally be no big deal, but they actually really do help with my mental state, my psychological state. They had a kind of proprietary blend of ingredients that really helped me with my mood. So it's kind of been throwing me off. My mind is a bit foggy. Even right now, I'm like chugging down cherry Coke just for the caffeine. I'm like, still not as sharp as I'd like to be at the moment. So my apologies, but we'll get there. Roll on up here. Oinkmaster Supreme Forever, always good to see you. Says, hi, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling better than you were? I was worried about you. Ed, how are you doing tonight? Yes, I appreciate that, Oinkmaster. I'm doing well. My little one's been running a little bit of a fever, so I was kind of worried for him, but he's got to do his testing and all that stuff, and he's okay. It's been a little warm, but after everybody's kind of been passing around being sick for the past month and a half to 2 months, it's like, oh no, not the kids. We were kind of just the missus and I sick back and forth, and then one of the little ones gets sick, and you're like, no, not the little one, but he's doing pretty good, and I am mostly better. So I appreciate you asking. Ed, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm pretty good. For the state of affairs, I'm pretty good.
Absolutely. Where was it? Scuba Stevo's Aquatic says, place a small order for Dustin's at Killer Kitty 08 just to see. Matt needs a Mafia link on the Fish Fam page, Fish Room Fever. Yeah, no pressure there, Matt. But that I think would be something that people would really enjoy if you're up to it. And I do love your, there we go. Liquid Zoo OnlyFins, fishfam.link/Tennessee Fish Mafia. So he's already got it going. There you go. Scuba Stevo's says, got to add me on there, Matt. I'm the Slaughter Slicer Stevo, SSSO for short. There we go. All right. Son of a Quack. Chat just jumped on. There it is. It says, thanks for the response. Also, how much do you guys feed your fish? I know it was Chloramine's now a very urban environment, but the Corys never seem to hoard food like my other fish. So, how often do we feed our fish being the question? Once a day is kind of an average here. And let me, I guess, preface this, that I'm not encouraging you to start feeding more. Because I think you said you were feeding every few days. I'm not encouraging you to start feeding more. If your fish are doing well with every few days, as most fish will do, that's perfectly fine. That being said, you've got to take into account things like our guppies and plecos that Ed and I like to breed. We feed them more often when we've got a lot of fry in the tank. We feed more often. I'll oftentimes feed several times a day if I've got fry in a tank. You don't have to do once a day. Every few days is perfectly fine. I would almost even say you could technically classify every day as too often. But again, it depends on the situation. If you've got tons of little baby fry in there, then you probably do want to feed every single day. I don't think you do, just from the question you posed, and you didn't mention fry, and I feel like that typically would have been indicated in the question. So I would stick with your every few days. It'd be perfectly fine. Your fish will be healthy. They'll be happy. You'll spend less on fish food, and everything will be good. You'll have less waste going into the tank, less waste being produced. So you will have to worry a little bit less about bioload. And if something goes wrong, it won't go quite as wrong. So yeah, every few days, perfectly fine. Again, a lot of it's situational, but go ahead. Give your 2 cents on that one.
Well, I definitely want to feed my fry though. Little bits several times, if that is possible, because guppies burn off lots of energy. So I normally feed my guppies twice a day. I try to do a live or a frozen food at the beginning of the day, and then a flake at the end of the towards the evening. But the fry, I like to give them the fry food, which I have in the other room, or I just have my. You can see how ground up this is. And I have a nut in there that grinds it all up. So it's almost like a powder. And so I do both of those for my fry.
Yeah, very, very good. Delilah, thank you for making me blush. I appreciate that. Scuba Steve-O said I didn't know he had one already. He's already has one fish from Fever. I didn't realize it either. Again, I'm a little off, but yeah, figures Matt would have already had that base covered. And he says you can email him, matt@fishfam.link, because he doesn't really see everything in the chat. So if you want your Tennessee Fish Mafia name added on there, you can email him.
And I wanted to promote his channel a lot more, because it's just, or his channel, but his website, because it's just such an amazing website. I guess I need to explore it more, but I found out this one thing that you can go and see whoever's live. It pops on there, and that's like, man, that's technology.
Absolutely. White Master Supreme Forever says, for large aquascaping rocks like Dragonstone, Seru, and etc., so far the best price I've seen is about $2 per pound. Have you seen anything better than that anywhere? I really have not. I know at one point, we're going to bring Paul up again. I know at one point, Paul had posted a link for one of the hardware stores where they were doing a sale on the stuff, and it was really cheap. It may have been less than $2 per pound. But typically, I'm not even finding the Dragonstone at $2 per pound. It's usually a bit more in my area. So honestly, if I ran across it at $2 per pound, I would probably buy a bunch of it, especially if I was going to do a large scape.
Yeah, your local fish store is probably going to be about $5 to $3.50. And I think Lowe's sometimes will sell it by the 50 pounds at a time for like $2 or $2.50.
Yeah, and then
you don't get to pick your pieces.
Right. I haven't done this, and we've discussed this for a while now. There's a landscape store right across the road from me. I need to go check in with them and see what they've got and what options are available for purchase sizes and pricing and stuff like that, because that might be another way to do it. If you've got a group of fish keepers and you all want to go in on a bulk buy, if you will, from like a landscape store and get a small pallet or half pallet of it, if that option's available, that may be a way to go to get it a little cheaper as well. All right, I'm going to jump over here to these super chats because God bless you all. They are piling up, and I don't want to get way behind on them. Let me roll back up here. We had Patrick Hardy with the $2 super sticker with the behind the scenes. I can't think of what it's called. The action board. But thank you so much for that, Patrick Hardy. Patrick followed that up again with another $3 super sticker with the fist bump pair. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Patrick, you're killing tonight. I really do appreciate you, my friend. Pegasus Arena using her a super chat for her membership and a member for 14 months. It's amazing how fast time flies. Thank you for that, Rena. Says, hi guys, hope to stream together soon. Chat poop. LOL. Oh, that's great. That is great. Yeah, absolutely, Rena. Now that I'm feeling better, February is extremely busy, as we've mentioned. Ed and I have a lot of different events and things going on this month. And I know the kids have quite a few appointments this month. But definitely we'll get together soon and stream. Just get with me and we'll try and work something out ahead of time. And I'd be glad to do it. It was fun last time we did it. Laura Sutton with $5 super sticker with that party pair. Woohoo! All right. Thank you so much for that, Laura. Fishy Dreams, following that up with a $5 super sticker with that cute little fox painting the number 1 on there. Much appreciated, Fish Dreams. Hope you're doing well. Killer Kitty 08 with a $2 super sticker with that little number 1 fox raising its finger up there. Really boshed my shoulder up again. It's doing worse than normal. We'll get through it. No. Number one. It still hasn't really been right since I fell on it, months and months ago. But
gosh, yeah,
it'll get there. And I tried to make an appointment, and they wanted to do an online appointment. And I was like, okay. And how are you going to actually check anything? And so I did the online appointment. They're like, show me the movement and where does it hurt? And they're like, well, you can do some exercises and you'll be fine. I'm like, okay, so I'll just keep moving it around. But the joy of trying to go to the doctors in this day and age is interesting.
Just to show how good of a heart Sean Peck has, he saw James wipe out. And instead of laughing, he went, oh my God, he fell. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And I was thinking he fell down the stairs or something, but he just fell over his feet or over a cat.
I fell over the cat, yeah. Well,
I didn't see it, so I don't know how bad it was. But Sean I thought that when I turned around, I was ready for his arm to be broken. And then there was a huge gash and bleeding. What were we doing?
Oh, we were going up to the fish store.
We're just going to the fish store.
Yeah, y'all came by to grab me because we were going to go hang out at the fish stores.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, I think we might have also been going to play games at his house. I think we went to a fish store and then we went to his. I don't remember. Fortunately, we hang out with Sean enough that I've confused exactly when all we do what. But yeah.
And we just got a whole bunch of that new game that we were playing.
Awesome.
He's probably going to want
to. I saw the pictures on all the fixes. That being said, I'm going to jump back over here so I can get back into the chat. Killer Kitty 08, thank you for that $2 super sticker with the fox going number 1 there. Rustic Nashville with $5 super chat says, meet y'all at Aquaticon Knoxville. Heart fishy emoji. Peace. Assassin snail. That is right. That is the assassin snail from the Tennessee Fish Mafia. Thank you so much, Assassin Snail, aka Rustic Nashville. Can't wait to see you there. Bird Garden. Our good friend there, Rack, with the $5 super sticker, that exercise pair hanging out, saying, how's it going? Appreciate that, Bird Garden. It's going. Go ahead, Ed.
I meant to bring a magazine in case Rack got here. We just got the bird watching magazine.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and my mom and dad both absolutely love it. And they accidentally my dad accidentally bought 2 subscriptions to it, so he's sending one to his best friend in Michigan.
Very cool. Very cool. Aqua Garden Zen became a new member. Thank you so much for joining the Fish Room Fever family. I hope you enjoyed the behind the scenes stuff. There's lots of videos and things posted you could go check out. And of course, you get access to those emojis in the chat and that membership badge that everybody loves. So I very much appreciate that, Aqua Garden. I hope you enjoy that stuff. And thanks for joining the family. Then Danikin Aquatics, I'm going to have to scroll down here so I can see what he said. There we go. Danikin Aquatics, been a member for 22 months, one of our longest memberships there. Says, I will be rocking that Fish Room Fever enough soon. Absolutely. Kenny E. Danikin Aquatics has been a Fish Room Fever friend for a very long time. I can't wait to hang out again with you soon, brother. That trip is way too far in the past. We need to get another one going soon. Alrighty.
I got some lights for the other fish room because the diver's bell is going to be in that cubby hole.
Yep.
You can't see it because it's just too dark. So I bought 3 of these push pops. Oh, gosh. I guess. Okay, 3 pops and it turns off. but you can change the colors and all sorts of stuff. And I'm going to mount them up above it, and it has a remote control, everything for $14 at Lowe's.
Yeah, you can't beat that. Ed was showing me that before the stream. I was like, that's essentially $5 a piece for the lights, and they all have a remote. That's awesome.
See how I can get this duller. That's pretty neat. I could be Iron Man pretty easy.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris Salazar saying, just made it. Glad to have you here. We still got a little bit of time left. A Rustic Nashville, the Assassin Snail, saying, I have high chlorine in my water, so I double prime. Absolutely. You can definitely do that. And it even mentions on there you can go with a higher dosage than the normal.
But you can, if there's no chlorine for it to clean out, it will start to eat the oxygen in the water.
You can't. Well, and so that's a whole long process. Yes, oxygen level is something you definitely need to be aware of when using prime. Technically, part of the way that it removes certain things from the water, the bonding process on the molecular level decreases oxygen in the water. To put it very simply, I always make sure to add additional oxygenation. If I'm doing like just a bucket of prime to maybe bag some fish up or something, I always make sure that I do additional oxygenation just to offset any oxygen decrease from that molecular bond process.
What do you do?
Or
do you like put a straw in there and go?
I mean, I guess for surface agitation, you could. Normally, I will use a. Typically, I'll either just use a drop-off line because I do have a linear air pump system, so I have some extra valves attached to it that just have line and an air stone that stay shut off unless I need that extra air stone. But one of the main ways that I've done that, especially on the road or before that system, is with that co-op USB air pump, like you have as well. I love those things for that. I just plug them in, hook them right on the bucket, and let it go. Especially awesome for when we're on the road in a hotel room. 116 watching, says Fish Dreams. That is awesome. I appreciate each and every one of you all being here tonight. Really, really do. If you've gotten some sort of value out of this, either educational or informational, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. I would really appreciate that. That makes a huge difference and lets YouTube know that they shouldn't just get rid of us, and maybe they should show a couple more people the channel.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zen Ginger, for posting the links there. Crystal's Pets and Plants saying hello. Hello, Crystal. Always good to see you. Roll on down through here. I saw a couple more highlighted things. There's Fishaholic saying, James, Ed, and Paul, howdy. Hope all is well. Just stopped by to say hello and lurking. Got a guppy question. I can't keep my guppies, comma, they're dying, comma, 60-gallon tank with Molly and Platy. Any tips, please? Well, Ed's got thousands and thousands of guppies, so I'm going to turn this over to him. Any advice on that, Ed?
Well, I probably wouldn't put them in with Platies and Mollies. I would keep them on their own because both Platies and Mollies I think are actually better hunters than guppies. So they're going to eat the guppy fry. And they're a little bit bigger than guppies. So, I mean, it's just they're at the bottom of the food chain there. And it's like both those fish are kind of smarter too than guppies. So it's like huge disadvantage for the guppies in that tank. Now, female guppies are as smart as a whip, but the boys just aren't very smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard to say what's going on. You know, if you've got enough, probably have hardness because you got other live bears going. I'd probably just keep them in a separate tank and see if, because I've had female mollies get gigantic and kill male mollies that are harassing them too much. So,
yeah,
you know, and a boy guppy might harass any female in the tank because they're stupid. And mollies and guppies are actually cousins. So a male guppy might be trying to impregnate a female, and I mean, he'd be dead meat if she's not in the mood.
Right, absolutely. There's definitely a big size and aggression difference there. No, I agree with you 100%, Ed. Paul Sotero says, James, I just checked. Lowe's currently Dragonstone, petrified wood, etc. 44-pound bag, $2.37 a pound.
Nice.
There you go. Thank you for that, Paul. Yeah, that's an awesome buy, especially if you don't have another good source where it is that $2 a pound. But as asked earlier, anything cheaper than $2, I've not seen it. The one off chance might be you happen to find a guy that brought some to a convention or a fish swap and just doesn't want to tote all of it home. So you get a really, really good deal that time. but that's not something that you could reliably depend upon. Where did we go? Paul Sotero says, how many people, quote unquote, age water before doing water changes? I don't, and it caused a commotion in a discus group I'm in. I don't know. I haven't. I would say, I haven't taken a survey. I don't know that a lot of people age water anymore on the freshwater side, just because we do have a lot of dechlorinators and things that work extremely well. Oftentimes, most of us will simply dechlorinate our tank while we're doing our water change. So we'll add the prime to the tank while we're doing our water change and topping that tank back off. I do know on the saltwater side that still is a thing with aging water, because if you're mixing the salt, if you're mixing your own salt water, you really don't want to do that in the tank. You want to mix that ahead of time, get the salinity and everything appropriate, temperature appropriate, and then add that salt water into the tank, versus just dumping salt into the tank as you're topping it off with fresh water. That's a really good way to very quickly and easily kill fish on the saltwater side. But on the freshwater side, I don't hear of a lot of people doing it. Go ahead.
The only place I hear anybody doing it is IFGA guys, the old school dudes, and it's probably because they're old school. Right. It's what they've been doing for 50 years or 60 or 70. They've been doing it a long time, and they don't change their ways. And it's not that their ways are wrong. So they've been doing a great job with beautiful fish and winning awards. So they don't change anything. I did it for 35, 40 years almost. Well, not 40, but 35 years probably. So
absolutely. It's one of those things that I can understand the philosophy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So they don't. But again, Paul mentioning causing some commotion in a discus group, I could definitely see that, because that's another one of those groups that goes back a couple of decades potentially, where discus used to be a lot more delicate than what they are, and very specific ways of doing things led to success in those days, whereas if you weren't quite as careful, you weren't successful with discus. So I could understand that being a thing, if you will, and it kind of plays like Ed mentioned with the old guard of, well, we've been doing it this way for 27 years, so why would we not do it this way? Even though you could do it another way and still achieve results that are equivalent.
And there is I used to fill a trash thing up that was like 35 gallons, and I'd probably only fill 30 because I'd leave that much. But I knew I put it in the fish room, and I knew it was the exact temperature of my tanks. I didn't have to, worry about heat and cold, and I could just, pull the stuff out, the water out, and then go. But it's called caveman. What is it? What's that called? I used to know the term. When you used buckets to fill tanks, it was called caveman water changes or caveman. Oh boy. Oh well. Before the Python, when the Python first came out, they used to. There was some saying that cavemen still did it that way. The old school. And darn it, it was a funny slang.
Absolutely.
I did it for 15 years longer than I needed to.
Yeah, I would not go back to hauling buckets of water. Unless I absolutely had to. That being said, Upper Aquatics, here we go. I figured we'd have a couple people chime in at aging water. Says, I've only got chlorine in my water, so I just age it for 72 hours and use it for my plant bins. There you go. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with it. I just know that a lot of people don't have the patience for it, sometimes don't have the space for it. We don't always have room. If you've got 2,000 gallons worth of aquariums and you need to do a 10% water change, not everybody can hold 200 gallons of water somewhere for 72 hours to be able to do that. So I think that both ways are completely viable. Chris Trapp did make a good point, though, in referencing evaporating chlorine out versus chloramine, which won't dissipate. So that's another thing. I feel like you're a lot less likely to have a no-no or create a problem if you're a new fish keeper and you're simply using the dechlorinator/dechlorminator. Is that a word? If not, it is now.
Sounds good.
Yeah, there we go. Because then you know that those things have priced. Whereas if maybe you did the hobby, or maybe you've been in the hobby, you don't really know your municipal source, to age something out that doesn't age out of the water, and you end up like, well, I tried aging my water and I killed all my fish anyways. So I feel like an additional safety buffer by using the dechlorinator, but you definitely can age your water out if it's appropriate for your water source.
Now, Dragon Layer said the pythons came out in the 70s.
Ooh.
Well, I guess I was caveman in it for a long time. I only had 3 tanks in well, I had a lot of tanks that were empty. I was going to set up a fish room, but I never got to it in Missouri once I retired. But I had a 200, 120, and then a 50. And I had like a closet that I just kept all my water in. So I had probably 35 1-gallon milk jugs on shelves, you know, and I think it was like 35 or 36 of them. And I did it that way.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a way you could do it. Where do we go here? Son of a Quack says, Master Supreme, forever great idea. Would love to see Ed make like an old clone trooper helmet. And speaking of saltwater fisherman fever, have y'all seen the Book of Boba Fett? Heard the new episode is great. I have not. So,
do you have the Disney Channel, James?
I do.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say I could share it with
the Disney Channel.
Well,
I probably need to check it out.
Next month I'm having the heart surgery, and I'm going to be just sitting around doing nothing. So I'm going to get the Disney Channel and binge watch all of these wonderful shows. I've never seen a Mandalorian episode, and I'm like a huge Star Wars guy. It's just the last 3 Star Wars movies made me so mad. I just kind of lost my flavor, but they say the shows are great. And so I plan on getting to Disney. I'm going to watch all those Boba Fett. And I'm a huge Fett fan. I actually have a license plate in my other room. When I lived in Illinois while I was going to college, I got B Fett on my license plate in Illinois. I thought Boba Fett flew around a ship called Slave One, and I didn't think Slave One would be too good on my license plate. So
probably not.
But B Fett, that's what we did. Or I did.
Absolutely. I'm just checking something real quick. I see a couple people mentioning that they've got lag issues. YouTube is telling me the connection is excellent. I am hardwired in per usual. We're running at...
I'm not hardwired, and I'm surrounded in tanks, so it's not rare. That's why I don't do as many streams from this room, especially if like my nieces and nephews are visiting, because they're going to be on their devices and I get knocked off all the time. That's why I do a lot of shows from the other room until I get this room hardwired. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be a YouTube or a StreamYard thing, because I'm running at 240 download speed and a 22 up, which is faster than most people get. And that's even with multiple gaming devices going right now between the misses and whatnot. So yeah, I take a good portion of those super chats and I put them in things like heavy duty internet, so that we don't have the issue. So my apologies if there is some lagging. It's got to be a StreamYard or a YouTube thing, because the internet is flawless. But we'll keep on with this. We've only got about 5 more minutes before we go over to Crafted with Chattanooga Ed, and we're getting crabby tonight. A few questions I want to... I'm sorry, go ahead, buddy.
Then Ginger asked if I have any Boba Fett tattoos. I couldn't get a tattoo for years because I was going to donate a kidney to my brother, which I did. And afterwards, I was able to finally get tattoos. And someday, I want to get Boba Fett either here or here, and Godzilla on the other side. Have Boba blowing his fire on his fist like this, and Godzilla going, and having the fire in the middle, hitting each other.
That would be pretty cool.
That's someday. But, I mean... everything takes time.
Absolutely. All right, I got my chat back here. Let's see. Jennifer Weaver says, if Lucas is burying his sponge filters halfway into the substrate, isn't that creating flow in the substrate similar to under gravel? Your thoughts?
No.
So yeah, it should be. If he's not got them running, then no. But I was about to say I don't think that Lucas is actually running any air through them, but under the premise that there was air running through a sponge filter and it was buried or submerged partially in substrate, then you would be pulling through at least some of the substrate. Now, you're not going to be pulling through the entire substrate bed off of a sponge filter like you would with an under gravel filter, but you would definitely have some area around that sponge that is going to be pulling some detritus and things through the substrate. So it depends on the size of the tank and how much flow you've got going through as to how much substrate you're actually filtering through, like under gravel. But it's not going to create the full effect of an under gravel. Well, it's still an interesting thought, and like Ed mentioned, I don't recall him actually running air through any of them. So in that sense, where it's just the sponge stuck in the substrate with no airflow, then there's no pull, then it's not doing anything. All right.
Well, but it's creating a big, bacteria factory.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we caught up 10:27 Eastern time. Go ahead. Sorry.
It actually makes sense what he's doing, because then he'd have to unbury them if he, to clean them. And since he just buried them halfway, then all the bacteria can live in it like a giant apartment building or something, and because if he was running air to them, they would clog after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Oinkmaster Supreme Forever says, thank you, James, for answering my question earlier about the stones. Being that I'm such a newbie with everything fish related, including supplies, I thought that was a decent price, but I wasn't positive. No, thank you for asking. It's always better to kind of double check if you can and find out, because the last thing you want to do is, maybe it was $10 a pound where you're at, and you're like, oh, well, that's probably a really good deal, and you bought $300 worth of it. You would have felt really bad if you came on here and found out that you could get it for a lot less. So there's never anything wrong with kind of sourcing out information to find out what is a good price on X item. Keeping in mind, if it's something that you can only get locally, then prices could vary. Price and participation may vary. See store for details. But no, thank you for the question. I'm glad we were able to help. All right. Look at that, down to the bottom. I cannot believe it. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any final questions or comments you want to throw in the chat, feel free to. We are here. Rustic Nashville says, I'm going on a fish store crawl this weekend in Knoxville. Where do I go, y'all?
We're going on a fish room tour in Knoxville this weekend, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I always love to go to Aquatic Marine. They are my local fish store. They're right up the road from me. Kenny's an amazing guy. For anybody that doesn't know, he is the man that is putting on Aquaticon, Knoxville, Tennessee. Here in just a couple of months, it's going to be an awesome event. Over 90 vendors, lots of YouTubers, and awesome people there. We're going to have a speaker's room. Link is in the description to check that out, and I'm sure somebody will also drop it in the chat. But I always go to Aquatic Marine right up the road from me. That's my local guy. If you're in town, I will say, after you go do your shopping at Aquatic Marine, if you've never seen Aquarium Knoxville, it's worth having a look. Sean Peck is a huge fan of them. I just haven't had the best experiences, but I also didn't have any family that worked there. But they do have a beautiful store, that has to be said. It's a neat place to go look around. I do enjoy looking around there. I just typically don't make a purchase there. But New Local Austin, it's coming. I promise you. New Local Austin and I had a conversation. At one point, I had cut out the tagline. He's like, you bring that back. Shame on you. But it's coming. I see you there asking for it. If you're going outside of the Knoxville area, it's not very far. I definitely recommend you go check out Aquatic Aesthetics. I mean, if you're already coming from Nashville, it's worth the trip to go to Ed's local fish store there, Aquatic Aesthetics.
Well, you know what? I would do a separate trip and go to Chattanooga on a different day, because we've got 3 good fish stores and an aquarium. So
yeah. Well, see, I was trying to get Rob in there at Aquatic Aesthetics because he's such an awesome guy and he's always been so supportive. I didn't want to leave him out, but Ed's saying do that separate. I don't blame him. There are several great fish stores down in that area. Well, there are a couple other places here in town, and we have a lot of like Pet Supplies Plus and things like that, which are also fun because being on 2 different ends of town, they have 2 different water sources, municipal water sources. And so they actually will have some different fish, and you'll find things there that you don't typically see in your box stores, even though they're a smaller box store. The one out west, Pet Supplies Plus, I've found some really neat fish at that you typically would only see in your mom and pop local fish stores.
We are also, this weekend, we're going to go to that one north of Knoxville.
Okay.
That has the saltwater farm.
Oh, yeah.
They do clowns. Yeah. And I think Bob said that he's talked to the owner and they're going to let us videotape their farm.
Very cool. Very cool.
So.
Absolutely. I see Aquatic Aesthetics chimed in, said, I'm listening, guys. Thanks. But all three are worth visiting. Yeah, no, they are. They are. You're both absolutely right.
Okay. Rob, I love at Aquatic Aesthetics. And I really like Ethan a lot at Fish Mania. Probably the prettiest store is called Bermuda Triangle in Chattanooga. But I've caught him on questionable things. So I would call him on questionable sales techniques to get rid of sick fish first and things like that. And that's all we'll say. So, because I don't want to hurt a fish store. But
absolutely.
Yeah. And he hates YouTubers anyway, so he's
not those are usually places we avoid. On that note, we are an hour in. We've got 111 people still watching, 114 people, excuse me. Y'all are phenomenal. Thank you so much for 86 likes on this. I do really appreciate it. Each and every one of you all, I highly recommend you go check out Crafted with Chattanooga Ed. We're going to have some fun over there, starting live now as soon as we end this. Ed, as always, thank you so much for not only being my friend, but for coming on here and hanging out with me every Thursday. I always have a great time with you. I'm looking forward to this weekend's trip, going to check out some fish stores. Until next time, a huge thank you to all the moderators, members, lurkers, listeners, super chatters, contributors, questioners, commentators, and of course, the replay crew. I love you guys. Until next time, keep your fish healthy. Keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself a little fish room fever. Take care.